Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Katie, and we're two sisters and borderline obsessed Marvel fans who have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe closely for years. And now we want to share our MCU discussions with you.
We chat about our own predictions and theories, plus some of our favorites from online, and our reactions to all of the Marvel content that's considered MCU canon, including the Disney Plus shows and the movies, as well as the Marvel news you need to know. All right, everyone. This is both a last and a first episode for us, which is super exciting. It is the last episode where we're really going to dive deep into Phase 4, but it's also the first time that we've completed a phase while we've been a show. So it's a really cool opportunity to us to look at the whole of Phase 4 in a way that we haven't done so far on the show. So I'm super looking forward to it. Just a little bit of a rundown of what you guys are going to hear today. We're going to talk about our favorite shows and movies from Phase 4, overall thoughts, and then we're going to jump into a little bit of a Phase 5 preview where we're going to talk about our top show and movie that we are most excited to see as we move into the next phase. So, as I always do, I'm going to kick it off to Katie, and we're going to start with her picks.
Well, first I gotta just say, I didn't really you were going on your little spiel, and I'm just gonna say it. I never normally fully listen when Taylor's doing her opening line.
That is
just
so
I'm
rude.
I'm used... No, I'm used to what you're saying. You're opening it up, okay, whatever. And then I tune back in by the time you're ready to kick it to me, so I know what we're doing. Regardless... I was half tuned out when you mentioned the whole this is our first time entering and finishing one phase, and I was like, holy crap, I didn't even think about that. This show was born on the backs of Black Widow and Loki. So yeah, it is a very memorable moment for us, and I'm pretty excited to also then, not this episode, we're not going to talk about this during this, but end the year of 2022, because that's also going to be our first full year as a podcast, so I'm sure that'll get mentioned during our final episode of the year as well. But, a lot of memorable and big moments for us. Anyway, I forgot the question. What was I being asked?
Well, in your being rude, you should have maybe listened to me instead of going on and on about how you don't listen to me, Caitlin.
Giving you some credit for bringing up something I didn't even think about, but instead you're making it offensive.
All right, well, I suppose it's how you read the statement. But anyway.
No, I just got off topic was more the thing. I got so far down that path that I was like, I don't remember what we were doing.
Tell me, what were your top 2 favorite movies? Because there weren't a ton of them. And then your top 2 favorite shows for Phase 4. And just so you guys know, we are including the television specials as TV series because they're most like that in terms of length than they are obviously a movie. So if you hear any TV specials pop in there, that's why those are in there.
Okay, so I feel like addressing the movie question first. This is hard, and I think it's, if you're listening to this, you're probably like, I'm not sure why you think it's hard, considering some of the things we've seen this year and where they've been and whatever. But if you really think about it, Phase 4 encapsulates more than I think we always think it does. So, I have to go with Black Widow as one of them. I don't think a Marvel movie, maybe with the exception of Infinity War, has gotten me to cry within the first 5 minutes of the film like Black Widow did. Also, listeners, those of you who have been around, my favorite Avenger from the very, very start of, me ever even thinking about the Avengers was always Natasha Romanoff. I absolutely love Black Widow. So I have to give it to that movie as one of mine. But, the second place spot might have to be shared just because it's a little hard to pick between these last two, which is obviously going to be No Way Home. For those of you, hello, that still came out in Phase 4. I know it feels like forever ago. It was literally a year ago at this point.
I can't even think about that.
I know. I don't even want to consider it as something that's been over a year old at this point. But I would have to say No Way Home is probably, and this is going to come as a shock that there's going to be a certain movie that didn't make the list here, but I think it would probably have to tie Wakanda Forever for me as my top 2.5 of, Phase 4.
All right, well, it looks like we are aligned on Phase 4 with the exception of Black Widow. I think because I don't have the tie to the character that you do, and also I've been
a strong critic of the fact that we were watching a movie about a character that was already dead. That was something that, even though I thought the movie kind of did its best to avoid, or get around that, it was a really big roadblock for me, and I talked a lot about that, even in the episodes where we were breaking down the film, both in the predictions and reactions. So,
which is fair.
Yeah. And, for that reason, Black Widow is definitely off, not in my top 2. I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. And to your point, that introduction is still something that sticks with me. And I am obsessed with that song, that was in that. It's just incredible.
Me too. I still play it on repeat. I love that.
Yeah. It'll pop up occasionally and you're like, oh, this one still hurts, but it's still kind of a banger. And I don't really know how to feel this mix of emotions.
Yeah.
So yeah, but not in my top 2, but the other 2, I definitely do 100% agree. It's gotta be No Way Home, I think, and this is, probably in this order. No Way Home, just the nostalgia, but the way it was not overdone, the way it was perfectly balanced with a real and raw story. I think you and I talked a lot about how excited we were for the way it set up the future of Spider-Man to be more comic accurate. That's a huge plus for me. As 2 girls who grew up watching Spider-Man, the animated cartoon was a big part of our daily routine for a really long time. So, kind of returning to the storylines that we really were familiar with as kids, I think, and opening the door for that is really important for No Way Home. I just really honestly thought the movie was flawless. It still stands up to this day. There's not a lot of things that had to be backtracked from it, unlike other TV shows and movies that have had to walk back things around time travel and the multiverse and all that stuff. So, gotta be No Way Home for me. And then, of course, number 2 has to be Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. That movie, just for so many reasons, was incredible. I mean, the emotion was unmatched in Phase 4, and honestly, probably in the entirety of the MCU, with maybe the exception of Infinity War, is the only one that I cried that loudly in public, I think. So just the emotion there. I think Ryan Coogler is so incredible as a director. It was beautifully shot. The way he uses music, I think very few other directors in the MCU use it as effectively as he does. Maybe Jon Favreau and some of the early Iron Mans, because those are still some really iconic shots as well. But Ryan Coogler is doing something really special with this franchise. The performances were incredible. And I mean, I would be very remiss if I put anything in slot number 2 other than Wakanda Forever.
Yeah. And, you said a lot of the things that I think, especially for Wakanda Forever, we said in the reactions episode. So definitely if you guys haven't had a chance, go check that out, because I think we could go on all day about the movie itself. And that's obviously been the most recent release. But I have to ask, what's your bottom or bottom 2 movies? If we're going to really rate Phase 4 and talk about it, I feel like we need to talk about the places where we felt it, fell a little short.
No, that's a good question. I think, looking at the list, it's actually pretty easy to pick for me. I think, let me just put it this way. There are 2 that are they're good. They're not my faves. I didn't think they were bad enough to be in the bottom 2. And those are Shang-Chi and Eternals. I liked both of them. I'm very excited for Shang-Chi to return. Eternals maybe a little less so, but they're both great franchises, great movies, awesome. That leaves only 2 more options. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder. And I think if you've been following the show long enough, that really shouldn't be a surprise, As in terms of Doctor Strange, that movie completely missed the mark in terms of what we were being sold it was. And that's fine. They've done that before. Sold us one plot and given us another, that's fine. But it just was not. I don't know how else to say it. It was supposed to be this direct ramification to No Way Home. It had nothing to do with No Way Home. It could have come before No Way Home, and it would have had 0 difference on the plot. It was messy. I even watched it a second time because I was with a friend who hadn't seen it, and I still was like, this still isn't good. I'm sorry. And I know everybody who's out there who's a Raimi fan, and people were really excited to see him come back. And hey, I'll be the first to tell you, I love Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. It is not a Raimi thing. It is just a messy movie that destroys characters, doesn't make sense, complicates the multiverse, and did not give me what it was selling. Now, so I think that has to be my absolute bottom for me. For Phase 4.
Wow, okay.
I am vehemently against that
I'm actually really
film.
shocked about that.
Really?
Yeah.
You thought Love and Thunder was worse? Because I am vehemently against Multiverse of Madness.
We'll get to my thoughts there.
All right.
Go ahead and explain why Love and Thunder is your now second to last.
Yes. In my ranking, Love and Thunder second to last. I love Thor. I think he was fantastic in Ragnarok, in Infinity War was okay.
Don't get me started on Thor and Infinity War.
I know. I was going to say he's fine in Infinity War, and then I thought about the conversations we've had offline. But, Waititi and Ragnarok were, some of the top tier MCU that still to this day,
Yes.
And so I was really excited for this. Going into it, we both thought it was going to be pure unfiltered Waititi, and it was, but not in a fun way, in a way that kind of made Thor the butt of his own joke in his own movie, and I hated that. I do tend to gravitate towards more serious stuff, but I liked Ragnarok because it was able to balance kind of a more serious tone with a more lighthearted tone, but not make Thor a joke. And unfortunately, he was a joke in this movie. It was just kind of like a rainbow unicorn vomited on the screen. Like, I have some issues with the characterization of him in this film, and that's why it's got to be, my second to bottom on this one.
So, interestingly enough, which I know this isn't a shock to Taylor, but I'm going to share it. We have the same bottom two. I also, and this is kind of what I was referencing earlier, MOM is on that bottom two. And for me to be having to say that is very hard for me, especially considering once we get to the shows, what I'm going to share is one of my favorites. But I would put Thor last, and I'll do Thor first. So I think Ragnarok was perfect. I think everything about it. And I've been seeing a lot more of people saying, Waititi saved Thor and then he destroyed him.
Yeah.
And, you can go back and listen to our reactions, and I can tell you that my tone might sound a little differently, because I think I walked out of that movie and I was like, I'm just glad we're not, after MOM, after a show like Moon Knight that was very serious, dark, I was really I liked the little bit of comic relief we got. I really enjoyed it. I was here for it. I enjoyed not having all that darkness, Of course, then I sat on it, then I thought about it, then I watched it again. And upon watching it again, and it's always that second rewatch that I think is what really tells you how you feel about a movie, I was like, yeah, this went too far. And to Taylor's point, Thor was the butt of his own movie, the joke of it all. And that was, and will be, once we get to one of the replay episodes that covers Endgame, going to be one of my big complaints about Endgame, because I cannot stand Thor's characterization between Infinity War and Endgame. Absolutely cannot stand it.
Well, and not to mention, one of the things, we were having a conversation, we actually saw each other in person this weekend, which is kind of rare for us, but we were talking this weekend about how we felt that in some ways Love and Thunder was actually a step back in his characterization. Specifically, I was thinking about that scene at the very beginning where he talks about he's talking to the local people who he's trying to save with the Guardians, and he completely destroys their sacred temple. And he just acts like it's no big deal. And all I could think about was, that is so Thor, Thor from the original Thor movie.
Yeah, when he goes to the Frost Giants.
Exactly, the guy who just doesn't care. He just wants to fight. He just, the empathy is missing. And I think we spent so much time watching him grow the empathy, and then for him to be such a buffoon that he doesn't have it anymore. It's okay, you just completely ruined this character that we watched for 10 years grow into someone who you could admire, and that's really disappointing.
Well, and I think there were plenty of times, I laughed. There were plenty of times I laughed. However, there were plenty of times I was like, ew. And I know that was supposed to be a joke, but ew.
Cringy.
It didn't land. And I thought, honestly, Gorr was such a great villain. I will always stand with that. I think he's still one of my absolute favorite villains, especially of Phase 4. But I also just felt like him coupled with the version of Thor we got, it was almost unfair. I was like, how are you going to, and I know we compared Gorr a lot to Killmonger, and you gave me a good hero in the form of T'Challa.
Yeah.
Versus I felt like the hero against the villain. I was sitting there and I was like, I hope the villain freaking wins.
Well, yeah, you have someone in T'Challa, to your point, who is someone you want to emulate, someone who is earning your respect, who just is regal in that way. And Thor, who is born to be a king, comes off as a jester or a buffoon.
And I didn't enjoy it. And honestly, one of the worst scenes for me, why were all the kids suddenly fighters? That entire last fight scene really
bizarre.
Yeah. So, sitting on it, and especially when you compare it to the other movies of this phase especially, I'm sorry, but I'm an Eternals lover. I've been very vocal about that. I love Eternals. I just don't think it quite makes, to Taylor's point earlier, that top 2, 3 movies, but it's a solid right in the middle. Same with Shang-Chi. You know, I really enjoyed both of them. I just don't think they make that top moment. But Thor just fell flat. And then I don't even think I need to get too far into what my anger with MLM, like, I have now watched the movie 3 times. I'm not gonna lie, it's becoming a slight comfort movie solely because I love Wanda and the Scarlet Witch, but besides that, I wouldn't watch it. I watch it for her and her only. I can quote all her lines. That's the only reason I'm watching this movie at this point. And it's a Doctor Strange film, which is what disappoints me, because I love Doctor Strange. He earned a lot of my respect in Infinity War.
Yeah.
I really, really started to like him during that. And I just sat there and I was like, my guy, you took a backseat in your own film.
Well, and not to mention, I think his character, too, is another one that was kind of demolished. Like, I don't know, I don't like the direction he was taken, and I understand he's supposed to be like a jerk. Like, you know, that's who Stephen Strange is, but I think even at the end of his own first solo film, and then throughout some of his appearances throughout the MCU, even in Ragnarok, for example.
Yeah.
You could see him maturing, taking it more seriously. You know, in Endgame, too, yes, there was a little bit of hubris there, of course, thinking he could help Peter, but he genuinely wanted to help, and there was a sense of growing empathy within him that did not exist in his first film when he was very cold. It was all self-centered. But then again, like, I don't know, in this film, it's not even that it undid that, it just didn't do anything. He just was stagnant.
I just felt like the film, there were just a lot of moments in the film that fell really flat. And I know I talked about one of those being the cameos. The cameos were just there to be cameos.
Yeah.
I felt that there wasn't a single part of me that sat there and was like, oh my God, like, yeah, it was cool to see who showed up and everything. But honestly, the best scene for me, well, everybody knows my favorite scene of this movie, but my best scene, but truly, was when the Scarlet Witch bodied the entire Illuminati. But then again, it was like, when you really look at it, you were like, so why'd you bring the Illuminati in if you were just gonna have the Scarlet Witch body them all?
Yeah.
Like, when you really think, and this is, and I know I said this in our reactions, which, reminding everybody, we had to have 2 episodes to react to this film because of how just like off the mark we thought it was. But I remember I had watched it with my roommates, and I remember them walking out, and they were like, oh my God, that was so good. And they're like mild Marvel fans, like not anywhere close to where I'm at. And I could have put on a whole presentation, pretty much is what I did. I sat there in our apartment for 2 to 3 hours explaining throughout the entire film all the plot issues and all the character development issues that I had with it. And by the end of it, they were like, you know, when you really explain all of that, yeah, that was a really bad movie. And I was like, exactly. Like, just for, you know, continuity and everything, there were just a lot of holes, a lot of things I didn't like. And I was really, and I said it before and I'll say it again, I was surprised at how much it tied into, you know, Infinity War and Endgame things, when I felt there were much other, like, bigger things that might have happened since. It just felt really weird, and I feel like the Doctor Strange movies hopefully don't continue down this road, because this one felt like it was just cleaning up.
Yeah.
So that one, I'm not going to put that at the dead last. Thor was still my most and biggest disappointment of Phase 4, but MOM, while it really disappointed me, I got the Scarlet Witch era. I got so much from her. I'm happy with that, and I will live on that. But yeah, so I'm going to have to put those 2 last as well.
All right, well, category 1, we agree. I have a feeling that's not going to happen so much in category 2 because it's a much wider field. Much wider field. So, you go first, because I'm truly, like, still debating what's 2 and what's gonna just get eked out of top 2. So you go first.
Okay. Shows are not a problem for me. I know what my faves. 100% my top 2, WandaVision and The Falcon and Winter Soldier, not even within question. Does it help that I love Wanda and Bucky? 100%. 100%. But I will say that isn't the reason that I'm choosing these 2. I thought WandaVision, compared to all of the shows, stands out the most. I think it just blows all the shows out of the water, no matter how good they are or questionably good they are. I just think what it did, honestly, it was like a cultural reset moment. Like,
it really
I feel
was.
like, yeah, I mean, the way people just tuned into it, the way we all talked about it, like, I never felt more connected to some of the Marvel fandom than I did during that time, just because it was like constantly online. Everybody had their theories, their thoughts, it just was ongoing, and honestly was part of the reason this, podcast and blog even got created way back in the early days. But I don't think you can emulate what WandaVision did. It had us, for lack of better words, shook. Like we were everywhere with it. The Falcon and Winter Soldier, I also put in my top, obviously, because it dealt with some real life things that I think we don't always address. We didn't have a chance to cover the show while we were like a full podcast. We will eventually do it in a replay, which I'm excited for. But I think, the depth of that show, we don't get a lot in Marvel. We don't get some of the conversations that came out of that show the way we do. And I really just, it was a powerful show to watch. And it was the only show that had me falling to the ground, literally throwing myself out of a chair at the finale. Like, I was all over the place. I was living my best life. So it's still like my biggest highlight. And then I just have to mention the one that didn't quite make the top would actually be Moon Knight for me.
Wow.
I know.
See, that's the only one that surprised me. Your first two I could have called, and I just didn't know the order. But Moon Knight surprises me.
No, I had to really think about it. But I went into Moon Knight not knowing much about the character, and I kind of liked that. I also, I talked very passionately about the DID that we saw in the show and the mental health issues that we were seeing, because I have quite an interest in that. I studied psych as part of my time in school. So I really liked that aspect of it, but I also just really enjoyed the character. It was out of the box character that, for me, I didn't know the character prior to it being announced and everything else and the research we did for the predictions. And honestly, I just thought it was so well done. I loved watching it. I really enjoyed tuning in every week to see Moon Knight. So I don't for a second think that it wouldn't have made my top two if WandaVision and The Falcon and Winter Soldier hadn't been such strong hitters at the very beginning of Phase 4. But that is my honorable mention of the TV shows.
All right, so I've been going back and forth. I finally made my picks. My number one show, and I think this is both surprising and not surprising, is Hawkeye.
Oh, wow.
Because it was actually our top show of last year. And truly, when I think about watching that show...
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot Hawkeye existed.
Well, I'm staring at a list right now, so that definitely helps.
Smart.
But
yeah.
I think, when I think about watching that show, I think about how much fun we had. Kate Bishop, I think... seeing that side of really getting to dive deep into Hawkeye, obviously the introduction or reintroduction, depending on how that shakes out, of Kingpin, the introduction of Echo, being set in New York City, which, as many of you know, is my home. There's just a lot of, at Christmas time especially, is just super fun. So there's just a lot of things I really enjoyed about that show. And so I think for that reason, it's got to be my number one. I just thought it was probably the most solid show all the way through. So that's my number one. My number two is actually WandaVision. I think for a lot of the reasons that Katie mentioned, it really was a cultural moment. It was during the pandemic. Everybody was stuck at home. We were just starting to get vaccinated, but it was still kind of that return to a monoculture that we had during 2020 and early 2021, and where everybody was kind of all watching the same thing at once and talking about it. And this was something that really stood out during that time. We were home. We got to watch it together. You guys all know Davis. We used to call Davis after, the episodes. And that was just a really fun memory and a fun time. And truthfully, having rewatched it ahead of MOM, it still holds up. It's still so fun. It's still, got so much different from all the other shows. Just the style and everything. So that's definitely got to be my number two. And then my honorable mention is actually Werewolf by Night.
Okay.
I thought that was such a solid show, or special presentation, I guess. I think it was, like WandaVision, actually very tonal in the sense that it was emulating something from the past. You guys know, I mentioned this a million times, Gael Garcia Bernal. I love him so much. So to see him in that character, I think too, it also opens up a whole new section of the MCU that we haven't explored before, and that we will probably get to explore as we move into a Midnight Suns coming forward, which isn't confirmed yet, but I think we all kind of know it's percolating. So I think that's got to be my honorable mention for the shows.
See, I actually have to say your number one only surprised surprised me because I forgot Hawkeye existed. I did love Hawkeye, but I think for as far as still, I'm going to keep Moon Knight as my honorable mention just because, like I said, it was different, you know, it stuck out in a lot of different ways for me. But I am a little surprised because I was expecting Moon Knight somewhere on your list, just because I know your love for Oscar Isaac, and also you really liked Moon Knight, so I'm actually a little shocked on that one.
I know. I think it wasn't what I expected, and I don't know what I expected, but it just wasn't that. I don't know. And maybe I think at the time I was excited about stepping away from the MCU, but then like knowing it had like completely no connection other than like a few words here and there like about Madripoor. I don't know. There was just something about it that like is keeping it from being like one of those things that I look back and I was like, those were the days. Whereas like WandaVision, I look back so fondly. Same thing with Hawkeye. And then Werewolf by Night, I was just like I think you guys have heard our reaction to that. I literally was like, I don't know that Marvel's put out anything better than this. Just quality-wise, like that one is just so top tier. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was with Moon Knight. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm excited to see Oscar Isaac reprise his role in another way. Maybe if he's, you know, teaming up with other characters. I don't know. There was just something about it that couldn't quite get there for me.
That's fair. Well, now I gotta ask the question, which I'm looking forward to hearing Taylor's answer. Everyone knows mine. What was your least favorite show of Phase 4?
I do know yours.
Everyone knows mine, but I'll go off on it when it's my turn.
This is gonna surprise no one, I think. It's What If for me.
Okay.
Because even though, and some of the shows or some of the episodes are real bangers, like 8 and 9 are like super solid.
Yeah.
But I struggle with not being live action. And I'm always going to struggle with that. And so even though there are definitely some shows on here that I was like, ooh, like, did I love that? What If is still always going to be my like almost cop-out answer because I'm like, I don't want to see, my preference is always going to not be animation.
Fair.
And nothing against animation. It's just I prefer live action.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so cracking my knuckles here. No surprise to anybody, my least favorite show of Phase 4 was Loki. So, you know, WandaVision and The Falcon and Winter Soldier obviously were high on my list for all the reasons I mentioned, plus the fact that I obviously love Wanda and Bucky. I love Loki, too. You know, my top 4, I've mentioned them before. Loki's one of them. I mean, my list is growing, but my original top 4, Loki's one of them. I went into this show with so much hope and expectation. Not even like I expected certain things, just like I know Loki, you know, and I was just looking forward to, you know, seeing him be Loki. And WandaVision, The Falcon and Winter Soldier had hit it so well. I had such high hopes going into that show. And, you know, I've said it before, it was extremely disappointing. It was disappointing as far as somebody who's been a Loki fan for as long as I have, seeing them just kind of unravel his character in like a very weird way. I hated the Sylvie storyline. Don't know. I mean, like, just everything that went about in that show, I felt like took away from Loki himself, which was upsetting to me because I thought I was getting a show about him. And instead I got a weird female version of him, which I was like, okay, I don't care. I understand the repercussions of it. I understand the whole, like, you know, he who shall not be named kind of vibe. I get that.
He who remains.
I don't know. Am I thinking Voldemort?
Yeah.
As soon as I said it, I was like, this could be Voldemort.
I was like, why does that sound wrong? And then I was like, wrong franchise.
Yeah, it's okay. They all like run together. Kang, I mean, he's not technically Kang, I guess, in Loki, but he is also, like, he's not actually named Kang. I understand those repercussions. I just felt like the show itself was all over the place. I felt like each episode, it was like, we're getting somewhere. And then it was like, never mind. And it just kind of kept going like that. And I was like, okay, this is not good.
The first 2 were very solid.
Yeah.
And then it dropped off hard.
Literally when Sylvie appeared.
Yeah. And like, look, like nothing against Sophia DiMartino, but
no,
like
not at
that
all.
whole
I love
thing,
her.
like she was fantastic. That's a hard to come in and put your own spin on a character that's been around for 10 years and is as iconic. I mean, you go girl, right? But her character was unnecessary.
That, and it was more that because they made her the main character, that's what upset me.
Yeah.
Like, she was great as a variant of Loki. I appreciated that. Like, and to your point, the actress is amazing, and there's nothing against her performance that's the problem. It's just she was unnecessary, and she became the main character, and I just was like, okay, I get she is technically a Loki, but then if you were just gonna do this, why even include the other Loki, like our Loki? Because at this point, I'm just like watching a show about her.
Yeah. It, like MOM, sold me a show that was gonna be all Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's not what MOM sold me, but it sold me one thing and gave me another.
Yeah.
And Loki sold me a Tom Hiddleston Loki show and then gave me a Sophia DiMartino Loki show.
Yeah.
Not what I expected or really wanted. Like, if you're gonna pass the torch, like, pass it, but then they also didn't pass it.
Yeah.
Instead, they're, like, weirdly in love with themselves. It's just, there's so much wrong on a lot of levels.
And then on top of that, I have to say, and this is just like picking apart slightly, but like something that will never sit right with me is that desk drawer scene where he opens the drawers and it's all the Infinity Stones and he's just like, we use them as paperweights. I literally was like, okay, I'm sorry, but you just built 3 phases. You built a dynasty off of the Infinity Stone saga. And you're, like, completely making a joke of them. Like, you literally killed characters for these stones.
Yeah.
And, like, that puts... I think that was, like, the moment of, like, oh, like, this is not gonna go where I think this is going. Like,
is this show gonna be okay? Or is this show gonna be something that I'm not gonna like?
Yeah. I think that was, like, a red flag, but I blew past it because I was like, Loki! And I just was like, it's fine. And then it just got worse. But, like, that moment just deeply upset me. Just, especially, part of it being Black Widow's obviously one of the characters who died for a stone, but, like...
So did Loki in some... I mean, not specifically a stone, but, like, also... Yeah, he did, kind of, the Tesseract.
Yeah, he did. He's pretty much sacrificed himself for that.
I forgot. I think I blacked that part out, and then I, like, did not think about it.
Well, and then Wanda had to kill Vision for one. Like, I was like, my guy, like, like, the trauma you've caused me over these stones, and then having to watch Bucky disintegrate first, and then everything else that happened. And I was like, and now you're sitting here making a joke of them. Like, 1, too soon if you're gonna do it. And 2, I was just like, this is already gonna be bad. Like, I was like, something, red flags. And so, obviously, like I said, no surprise, Loki's not it for me. That is my least favorite show of Phase 4. I could never watch it again, and I'd be happy.
All right, well, that is it for our Phase 4 review, and now we're gonna pivot into a quick Phase 5 preview and the top 2 movies and top 2 shows that we are most excited about. We were originally gonna do one of each, but I quickly changed my mind to do 2 because this is gonna be so fun. Like, so fun. And I couldn't pick 2, and I'm still gonna have honorable mentions because I really just want to put the whole of Phase 5 on my can't wait list because I know you're gonna say there's a mulligan, but I don't think there's a single mulligan in Phase 5.
I actually, personally, there's 2 for me.
Oh yeah, wait, no, there is 2. I mean, no, sorry. I don't think one of them's okay, let's just say our mulligans really quick.
Okay, so as far as movies, the Marvels.
Yeah, same.
Shows, no one's gonna be surprised considering what I just said, Loki Season 2.
Yeah, okay. See, I think the only mulligan for me is the Marvels. I'm so excited for Loki Season 2. Marvel likes to take feedback, so, you know, maybe they'll fix some things, so give it a chance.
Fair, just like in comparison to everything else I'm looking at, I think just because of what happens, it's like one of those things where like I have a little bit of knowledge, so I'm like, it could be bad versus like some of the others I don't really have any knowledge of because they're going to be brand new. So it's kind of like, well, how can you judge them? You don't know.
Yeah. I think though, I am not as unexcited for the Marvels as I thought I was now that we've seen Monica and Kamala in action. This is going to sound terrible, but knowing that Carol Danvers is a little bit diluted by other characters makes me more excited.
Yeah, that's fair.
Look, I know a lot of the hate around that character is specifically directed at Brie Larson. I don't have a problem with Brie Larson. Also, her Twitter's hilarious for anyone who follows her. Sometimes it just makes me laugh out loud and brings me a little seed of joy. So nothing against Brie Larson, but that character is so just like meh. She has like no personality.
Yeah.
She's completely invincible. I just am not invested in the slightest. However, I think Kamala's incredible. Monica's a baddie, and I'm so excited to see them in this film. So I could be less excited for the Marvels, you know, if it was just a solo Captain Marvel sequel, but I'm feeling a little better.
Yeah, just like in comparison to everything else slated for Phase 5.
Oh, for sure. Definitely on the bottom.
But let's get our favorites out there.
All right.
So I don't even think I really even almost need to go through mine, because as soon as the Phase 5 slate came out, you know, obviously we covered it. I said from the get-go what my movies were, but I don't think I mentioned my honorable mention. So we'll still go through them. Obviously, top 2, Thunderbolts, Captain America, New World Order. Boom. No need to explain that for who I am. There's no explanation needed for why those are going to be my top 2. My honorable mention I will give to Ant-Man.
Ooh, what an interesting choice.
Yes, and that is mainly because I think this movie is going to usher in what we're seeing in Phase 6. I think it's the big entrance point. I think we've gotten a lot of hints at multiversal things, hints at Kang. We've seen, you know, the things coming and little like puzzle pieces. I think Quantumanium is just going to blow it wide open. And then they're going to force us to sit on it.
Yeah.
For most of the rest of Phase 5. And then we're going to hit Phase 6 really freaking hard. So that's my honorable mention, just because I'm expecting it to be a lot. And not to get my expectations high, but I truly am expecting a lot from it in the sense of what I've already seen in the trailers and what I think is coming with it. I think it's going to be a really important movie moving forward.
I think that's definitely a good point. For me, that doesn't give it enough to go into my top. My top, so hard. I'm really excited about Blade, but also the Thunderbolts. So I'm going to kind of put them in like 1 and 2 together in no particular order. I think Mahershala Ali is going to be fantastic in the role of Blade. I also, having seen the Wesley Snipes version for the first time last year, think it's just like an interesting character. I'm excited to see how he fits into the MCU. I think we're going to start to see characters who have relationships in the comics introduced. You know, that's something I'm excited about. And I just think it's going to be really fun and fresh and different. And I'm really pumped for that one. Tied with it is then, of course, the Thunderbolts. I think this is just going to be so fun. I mean, the way David Harbour's talking about it. We love Florence Pugh. She's a queen. There's just going to be, and I like too that, you know, one thing I think we've talked a lot about just in general with Marvel is like their kind of inability to like develop secondary characters sometimes. So it's kind of almost like cleaning up all of these secondary characters and giving them a movie where they can actually shine. Like Ghost. Like, did anybody really think about what happened to her after Ant-Man 2? Like, no, but now she's gonna get a whole movie where she gets to be one of the main characters versus just this misunderstood villain. So, like, it's really cool to see these kind of secondary characters get their chance to shine in more of a hero role. Now, my honorable mention is gotta be Captain America: New World Order. I think that movie is gonna be such a fun return to some of the tones that we had in the early MCU before we got really wicked and wild out in space and in the quantum realm and in the multiverse.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be almost like a nice, I don't know.
Like reprieve almost.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be nice to just like get deep into like CIA, espionage, and like that corner of the MCU that other than Secret Invasion, which is also in Phase 5, we really haven't gotten as much into recently as, you know, obviously it was really heavy in Phases 1 and 2. So I'm excited to return to that. I also, you know, seeing Mackie in his first true outing as Captain America, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be awesome. His suit's ridiculous. And it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, like, those are my top 2 in a heartbeat. I love that stuff. You guys know I love that stuff. So I'm excited for what's to come. And I'm so excited that they're the back-to-back movies. Like, you have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about shows. What are your top 2 shows that you're expecting from Phase 5?
I literally just want to pick all of them. Like, I'm staring at the list, and it is so difficult. I think they're so varied, and there's so many characters that I am so deeply interested in that I, like, don't even know what to say as my second. We all know what my top is gonna be. I am so excited for the return of Daredevil. Like, it's gonna be insane. If anybody's seen the videos of Charlie Cox training for it, they're amazing. Like, I am just so excited. I loved that show. I cannot wait for him to be back, especially tied to the MCU. Getting that little tease of him in She-Hulk was incredible. I hope that we get to see them together because I ship them so hard. I'm just really excited about Daredevil. My second is like so difficult. This is so tough, guys. This is so tough.
I'm sitting here. I have both picked and my honorable mention. I am solid over here.
No, okay, because here's the thing. Agatha House of Harkness is going to be awesome. And it's going to be such a fun continuation of WandaVision. But I am so interested in Ironheart because Riri is awesome. And Echo was amazing in Hawkeye, and Secret Invasion is going to like blow everybody's mind. So it's like, each one of these shows has something so important that they're bringing to the table. But now that I've said all these things, it's helped me coalesce my feelings.
Notice how you completely skipped over Loki, season 2.
Yeah. Look, I didn't say it was a mulligan because I think that there's some hope that they'll fix it. Does that mean that I think it deserves to be in the echelon with all of these others? No, okay? Number 2, Secret Invasion. I'm excited to bring back Nick Fury. I'm excited to get back into the espionage, and I also just think the Secret Invasion storyline is so amazing, and I'm really, really excited to have my mind blown by who we thought was one of our characters and is actually a Skrull. Like, I think that show is going to be filled with, like, audible gasp moments, and I'm really, really excited about that. Now, my honorable mention, and this is really tough because, like I said, I think all 3 of the remaining shows outside of Loki are going to be amazing. Not that I don't think Loki has the potential to be amazing, but the other ones have a little bit of a head start. I'm going to go with Echo. I think because she is related to Daredevil, I'm excited about that. I think she was awesome in Hawkeye, and I am just really, really excited for that show. So I think that's going to have to be my honorable mention.
All right. So I'm going to go with Secret Invasion, which I don't think is a surprise. And I'll go with Daredevil for my top 2.
Yes!
Now, it's been no secret I haven't seen the Netflix Daredevil. It's on my list. We're working towards it. But I was binging Stranger Things for a while. Now Wednesday is out. Like, there's so many things coming out that I'm watching, I'm stuck on, that I keep, like, you know, getting Daredevil thrown further and further back. Because sometimes I just don't want to watch, like, gore. You know? Like, sometimes I just want a comedy. So I have to say, though, my love for him has festered in, you know, when he made his appearance in No Way Home, but specifically in She-Hulk, I really fell for the character. So I'm most excited about him, you know, coming fully into the MCU so that we have the ability to kind of use him in relation to other characters like we saw in She-Hulk. So I'm really ready for that. And then this probably shouldn't be a surprise that Agatha House of... Well, actually, wait. Which one is it? It's Coven of Chaos now, isn't it?
Oh, did I call it House of Harkness?
I don't know, but I almost did. I forgot.
Yeah, I think it's Coven of Chaos now.
That's also on me. I totally forgot. And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, those look like seeds, but it's really tiny, so I can't tell. But I think that's going to have to be my honorable mention. To your point, continuing the WandaVision storyline, going back into Agatha a little bit more, but I'm really excited about some of the people who we have been seeing being casted or rumored to be in this show. We've had both of Wanda's sons, an older version of them, being rumored to be in this. We've had Wanda herself being rumored to appear in at least one episode. So I think I'm really excited to see where this takes us. Obviously, I don't super expect to see too much magic elsewhere in the slate for Phase 5, so I think this is going to be that big magic kind of vibe for this next phase, and I'm excited to see who shows up, where it furthers that line, because, you know, we've talked a lot about the different lines, the cosmic, the on the ground, all the different places we're seeing heroes, and this is really the only one that's going to be in its category for Phase 5. So it'll be exciting because I think it's going to have to set some sort of ground for whatever Phase 6 brings us in the realm of magic. And I'm pumped to be there.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is a wrap on our Phase 4 reactions. Now that we are closing the book on Phase 4, we are opening the book on Phase 5. So welcome into Phase 5, everyone. This is your official welcome for Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories. We are very excited to jump into all of it of course, no new content until 2023, so we're going to do a few fun things that Katie's going to list out in a second until we get new content. But if you are excited to follow us into Phase 5, you can subscribe on your podcast platform of choice and also like and follow the blog. We have lots of extra supplemental content there as well. And you can also check out our merch store on Redbubble if you are looking for any holiday gifts.
Make sure you guys are also following us on Twitter at Let's Talk MFT. All the blogs, all the episodes, news, everything is up there. So make sure you guys are giving us a follow. And as Taylor said, we're going to be going onto a little bit of a content pause from Marvel until Quantumania comes out. So in the meantime, we'll be doing our episodes every 2 weeks like we usually do when content kind of lulls down. Our last episode, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, of 2022 will be us covering the year of 2022. So obviously this was for Phase 4. This next episode will just be for 2022 shows and movies. So make sure you guys are keeping an eye out for that. And then we'll have some fun stuff coming in January and February prior to Quantumania. We'll probably be getting back into some of those replay episodes that we, mention so often, but we haven't had a chance to do because there's been so much Marvel content this year, which we're not complaining, I promise. Just haven't had a chance to keep up with that. So we'll definitely be able to put some more of those out for you guys as well. So in the meantime, if you guys have missed anything in Phase 4, now that it has wrapped up, go back, make sure you guys are watching all of it, and make sure you guys are keeping up with all of our episodes that go with everything as well, because Marvel just blew your mind, so let's talk about it.